In this 25th anniversary year of September 11th, the Tunnel to Towers Foundation continues to honor America's heroes. Heroes like Fire Lieutenant Michael Wells, who was inspired by 9/11 to serve his community. After 14 dedicated years of service, he lost his battle with occupational cancer, leaving behind his wife, Katie, and their 3 children. Tunnel to Towers honored Lieutenant Wells by paying off the family's mortgage in recognition of his sacrifices. Donate $11 monthly and amplify your impact with a car or land donation. Go to T2T.org.
He's at war with woke.
Joe Concha
thinks liberals are a joke.
Joe Concha.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
We're in the 90s now. Red, hot, chili, peppers. All right, I'm not going to sing Red Hot, but you ever want to move really fast when you're working out or biking or whatever? Put on the Red Hot Chili Peppers. Trust me. Gets the blood flowing. All right, it's Friday night, and I have a plethora of bites to play for you guys here. But obviously the big news today, hopefully you have a extensive portfolio like I do. And for a while, at the beginning of this war with Iran, things were looking a little shaky. But now we are approaching the 50,000 mark again in the Dow Jones. We're already at record highs, the S&P 500 and in the NASDAQ. Oil is dropping like a stone. It was, we heard about, it's going to be $200 per barrel oil. Trump, what has he done? Well, we're about 80 now. Pretty good. So we are heading all in the right direction. And that is because you look back at all the triumphs of President Trump, first term, second term. I'm going to put this at the top. Outside of beating Kamala, of course, but that's a different kind of triumph. But the fact that here we are, April 17th, and the Iranians capitulated on everything. No more nuclear ambitions. Uranium, no more enrichment. No more nuclear dust that's going to be handed over. The Strait of Hormuz will now be free flowing, no tolls or anything like that. And hopefully we have people there that we could work with. The foreign minister seems to be, I've seen him in interviews, not as radical as obviously the Ayatollah and the mullahs that are now not with 72 virgins, that I can probably guarantee. But overall, what happened here was the Strait of Hormuz and the blockade that we imposed on Iranian ships, oil going in and out. I talked about it all week. But when 80% of your revenue as a country is oil, exports and imports, and you can't get that in or out, your economy is going to sink in a hurry. More importantly, your customers are going to get upset, like China, biggest customer, needs Iranian oil. And without them getting it, I can guarantee you we will learn in the next day or two or week that it was China ultimately that said, open that strait up. We need our oil. And Iran doesn't want to lose its biggest customer, so they capitulated. Oh, and by the way, President Trump, as he's been saying for days now, we held all the cards. They don't have a military to fight back with. No more missiles being launched. The ceasefire that everybody mocked actually held. And then when we blocked their ships from getting in and out, checkmate. This was 4D chess. And every Democrat out there who criticized this war, who played the fear-mongering card, talked about World War III, well, you're looking pretty stupid right now. And now the economy is going to take off like a rocket. Obviously today, the Dow Jones way up. And it's not just about the stock market, right? Ultimately, gas prices, we're going to start to see them come down. No more $4 a gallon gas. It'll be back into levels that we saw where it was even below $2 in more than a dozen states. We're going right back to that again. And oh, by the way, maybe even lower, because now we, the United States, we're the biggest seller of oil and gas. This is where you buy it from, not Saudi Arabia, not OPEC, the United States. And with Venezuela opened up as well now, sky's the limit. And as far as Trump, I mean, the word I keep going back to, everybody, balls, brass balls on this guy. No president, Republican or Democrat, when they all talked about it, Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. This regime must be stopped, and didn't do a damn thing about it. Trump did. And Pete Hegseth, by the way, I keep hearing is unqualified, has no business being the Secretary of Defense / Secretary of War. I mean, how many A-pluses can this guy rack up in the span of 15 months? Venezuela, arresting Maduro without one U.S. casualty? If I told you just a couple months ago that we would go to war with Iran, take out all their nuclear facilities, win in about a month, get everything we want, take out their leadership, and I don't mean to minimize this in any way, shape, or form, but in the context of war, to only lose 13 U.S. service members, and we honor their memory and their sacrifice. But to go into a war like this and lose 13 people, when you consider the Iraq War, we lost more than 4,000. When you look back on Vietnam, then you're getting above 60,000, World War II. I could go on. But this has been an unmitigated success, completely and totally. And Trump deserves all the credit in the world. Democrats won't give it to him, of course. I guess we're still going to concentrate on a meme of Trump as Jesus. If you turn on the other networks, like that's what they concentrate on when they're not covering the Eric Swalwell allegations, which we're going to get more into tonight in a bit. But let me give you an example of how just, I keep going back to this word as well, stupid Democrats are. Chris Van Hollen. I lived in Maryland for a couple of years, went to a fine university there, and he is the senator from Maryland. This is the guy you may remember, Kilmar Abrego Garcia, the Maryland man. This guy went down to visit him and had tequila with him. There's photos, there's everything, because they felt so sorry for this guy. You know, the MS-13 gang member who beat his wife, who was engaged, allegedly, probably, absolutely, in human trafficking. He's going on trial for that. Van Hollen goes on MS now, and this is what he says after everything that I just told you, that you've been learning about all day, as far as the U.S. won here on every level. And this is what Van Hollen had to say, where you can't even give Trump even an ounce of credit. In fact, you criticize him for the result that we're seeing with Iran. This is cut number 19. Go.
From the beginning, Donald Trump and his team have not defined their goals. They've never had an end game. And here we are, you know, the president celebrating the reopening of the Strait of Hormuz, which, as we've just said, was open before this war started, but without the huge costs that we've incurred in the meantime. So this is why we keep calling upon our Republican colleagues to join us in reining in this president who started this illegal war. And we're going to keep pressing them. We're going to keep bringing up these war powers resolutions.
Oh, you're going to limit our war power, Democrats? No worries. We don't need it anymore with this particular conflict. That's what Democrats wanted to do. They wanted to shut this thing down from the beginning. They own this. They own their opposition to this completely and totally. As for Van Hollen's claim that we didn't lay out our objectives, the Trump administration didn't, I'm absolutely certain I heard every day for a month what our objectives were. Iran can't have a nuclear weapon. They can't have a nuclear program. They can't enrich uranium. There needs to be regime change, but it has to come from within. So we're not going in there with boots on the ground like we stupidly did in Iraq, making our soldiers sitting ducks for IEDs. And the strait has to be free-flowing. Remember, Van Hollen, I guess, wasn't alive, like, you know, before this war, or at least coherent, because we had the Houthis, who are funded by, ding, 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 Iran, terror proxy, constantly attacking all ships, including ours, obviously, cargo ships, oil tankers, thousands of attacks by drones and otherwise. And now that ain't going to happen anymore. So he's saying we accomplished nothing. Oh, the cost is horrible. Yeah, we're worried with Ukraine, pal, when you kept voting over and over again to give Vladimir Zelensky a blank check to have this war go on in perpetuity, where we have no accountability where that money has been going. That war is still going on, apparently. You don't hear a thing about it because it's a stalemate. Nothing's happening. Russians can't get to Kyiv. They can't get to the major cities in Ukraine, and Ukraine fighting hard and just gallantly. I mean, when you think about how much they're outsized by the Russians, but obviously can't push the Russians out. But that war, if Kamala Harris won, we would have been sending all these billions and billions and billions in perpetuity forever with no result and nothing gained. Here we gain a lot. And guess who loses besides Iran? China. Now they're really isolated, aren't they? Because they're not getting oil freely, exclusively from Venezuela anymore. And suddenly Iran as well, I guess we'll still continue to give them oil, but we could be competitive in that regard now. Make the Chinese our biggest customer. So we will see. But that's what Van Hollen had to say. And it's just so lame. So that's what they're going to go with, fine. But you're going to see Trump's poll numbers now shoot up. And they've been dipping a little bit. Obviously, the uncertainty with the stock market and gas prices going up. Okay, now watch what happens. Again, I'll say it once, I'll say it again. This is the most transformative president we will have in our lifetimes. Honestly, with all the things that just in the first 15 months of the second term alone, to close the border the way he did, we haven't had an illegal released into this country in 9 months. 0. When it used to be millions under the Oropin administration. That is incredible. And now with this Iran war, also incredible. Venezuela, we talked about. It's just absolutely incredible. Meanwhile, the Pope is against this war. And that's his right. He has his right to an opinion, even though they seem to be very political and very pointed only at the Trump administration lately. Here is the president on that disagreement with the Pope, and he makes some very good points here on the South Lawn of the White House. This is cut number 2. Go.
Why are you fighting with the Pope, and are you worried it's upsetting your...
No, I don't. I have to do what's right. The Pope has to understand that. Very simple. I have nothing against the Pope. His brother's MAGA all the way. I like his brother, Louis. I'm not fighting with him. The Pope made a statement. He says Iran can have a nuclear weapon. I say Iran cannot have a nuclear weapon. And if the Pope looked at the 42,000 people that were killed over the last 2 or 3 months as a protester with no weapons, no nothing, I mean, you take a look at that. So I can disagree with the Pope. I have a right to disagree. I have a right to disagree with the Pope.
What do you think?
He does. And the Pope, I didn't really hear all that much about those 42,000 people just executed in the streets of Iran for peacefully protesting, unarmed. That is 42,000. Think about that. 1,200 people died in Israel because of the Hamas attacks on October 7, 2023. I mean, multiply that by what, 35? I mean, that isn't talked about enough. This regime had to be stopped, especially if they got a nuclear weapon, because to Trump's point, Marco Rubio's point, J.D. Vance's point, they would have used it. They don't care. They die. Hey, they're martyrs. Hey, at least they took out Israel, who they've said time and again, they want to wipe off the map and death to America. All right. So one more bad guy now out of the way, it seems. I don't see how this reverses itself in any way, shape, or form, because again, the Chinese are involved, and that's who Iran answers to. Meanwhile, I'm going to switch gears here. Well, actually, I won't. I want to play one more from Trump. And this is him on NATO, North America Treaty Organization. And we have had the backs of Britain. We didn't kick their ass in 1812 and 1776. All right. We have had their backs forever. They're supposed to be our greatest ally. And instead, zero help. Absolutely worthless. The French doing what the French do best. And then obviously Spain, well, good luck. You're going to do zero trade now with the U.S. moving forward, according to Trump. Anyway, here is Trump on NATO. And again, we've had their back time and again. And when we needed them, or not needed, but wanted them to help us, they didn't lift a finger. The Arab nations in the region did, ironically enough. The world is upside down, but here's Trump at cut number 11. Go.
We spend trillions and trillions of dollars on NATO, and when I asked them to get involved on a much smaller situation, which is Hormuz and Iran, they weren't there for us. Remember what I said. They weren't there. None of them. They weren't there. So we were there on Ukraine. I mean, we should have been. It would have never happened if I were president. But nevertheless, when they've had problems over the years, we were there. When we asked them to get involved on a very minor skirmish by comparison to what it could be, they weren't there. So I don't think they'd be there for a large skirmish, and therefore I think they've got themselves a problem.
I wouldn't be surprised if we just pull out altogether. Screw it. The whole point of NATO is to protect our friends you want to call them that, from Russia and their aggression. And as we've seen from Russia, they can barely get into Ukraine. They're not marching into Poland and then taking over Europe. Just ain't going to happen. So screw NATO. Let's think of something else. If this is the way this is going to go, a one-way street. We didn't give it away at all. We got everything from Iran. It is Red Hot Chili Pepper night here on Concha at Night. Back with so much more in just a moment.
Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
She loves me.
Only as I am. Nice voice, right? I mean, you don't see that quite come, but they could go a couple different directions, Red Hot Chili Peppers. I don't ever want to feel. I've never been a singer, and I'm showing why now. Anyway, welcome back on this Friday night. And there's a comedian out there. I never heard of the guy before. I got to be honest with you. Dane Frisbee, which is an interesting last name. But this clip, it's going viral. It's beyond funny. And this guy, typical small comedy club, red brick wall behind him, talking about what would Hitler be like today in our woke society. I just found this to be hilarious. There's nothing really left to say except play the clip. Cut number 12. Go.
Imagine thinking you're a good person just because you're a vegan and that's the reason alone. A lot of people out there, they want you to think they're a good person just because they tick a few boxes. Do you know what I mean? We shouldn't trust these people. Hitler was a vegan. He was also an artist. He was also into fashion. He took a few drugs. Wasn't into God. Obsessed with politics and wouldn't shut the up. If he was around today, he'd just be a university student. With blue hair and pronouns, Adolf his her.
His her.
Just screaming at a protest. Same sign, the Jews.
Oh. See, that's just tremendous on every level. And I think he's Irish. I'm guessing, but yeah, definitely Irish. But I'm definitely going to try to find more stuff from this guy because that is outstanding. It's like the opposite of Jimmy Kimmel. This guy goes on Michelle Obama's Insufferable podcast to talk about how it's not his job to be funny. Actually, his job is to take out Trump and to speak truth to power, bravely and boldly. We're going to talk more about that when we come back. This is Concha at Night. Back with so much more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition, sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Was it Flea? Was he the guitarist? I believe he was, right? Yeah. He's also in the movie Point Break. Almost got ran over by a lawnmower or something. Weird stuff. Anyway, this is Concha at Night. Welcome back on this Friday night. So just to wrap a little bow around what I was talking about before, Jimmy Kimmel goes on Michelle Obama's podcast, and Michelle Obama just, kissing the derriere like you would never imagine, talking about how brave Jimmy is and how bold he is for taking on Trump. Yeah, that's real bold. That's really original. As I've mentioned, he is a distant third place to Greg Gutfeld in the late night ratings, that race or lack thereof. And I looked it up. There were some nights where Johnny Carson would actually get 15 million people tuning in. I mean, that is insane. I get it was a different time. But still, you can't say somebody has 15 times the audience because it was a different time. Maybe Carson just didn't offend half the country on a nightly basis. And Kimmel never has Republicans on ever. And then, as I said this week, worth repeating, the Eric Swalwell stuff, if Kimmel and what he told Michelle Obama was that it's his job to talk about politics and it would be shameful if he didn't. Okay. If that's the way you want to run your show, fine. So Eric Swalwell announced on your show, because you're his friend, that he was running for governor of California. And then in the span of 48 hours, he went from likely the next governor of California, just because that state's so blue. If he got to the primary anyway, then he probably would have won. And then governors of California tend to run for president, like Newsom's going to do, like Reagan did. And Swalwell already has, now that I think about it, in 2020, a very forgetful campaign. And not one joke, not one even mention of Eric Swalwell on Jimmy Kimmel's show or Colbert's, of course. Yet they scream about the Epstein files and how the victims, we need to think of the victims. And obviously, they're all into the Epstein files now because they think Trump did something nefarious, which, again, as I said a billion times, it would have come out in 2015, probably when he ran for president, when Obama was president. That would have been leaked in about 8 seconds if Trump ever did anything like he's been accused of by the likes of Jimmy Kimmel. Now, suddenly, all these victims of Eric Swalwell, Kimmel isn't thinking of those victims. That's so strange and won't even mention it. That's the funny thing. Like, the bias of omission. You say, well, he's just a comic. He's not up to the same standards as a journalist. No, by Jimmy's rules, he's a journalist. And he is somebody who's speaking truth to power, holding the powerful accountable if they have an R next to their name. That's the way it works with him, the Pope of late night. I'll be on with Brian Kilmeade on Saturday night on One Nation to talk about this more if you want to tune in to the Fox News channel. Anyway, let's talk about Candace Owens, because when you mention who some of the worst people in the world are, and I'm not talking about like Putin, like that kind of worse, but just bad beings that have no soul. Candace Owens on a daily basis. Now, Candace used to be a big star in conservative circles. And I was at one speech one time down in Palm Beach in Florida at the Breakers, and she was the headline speaker, and people lined up 300-400 people just to talk to her, just to shake her hand and have her sign a book. I mean, it really was remarkable to watch. And then suddenly, there's no other way to describe this, but she has gone crazy, especially after the Charlie Kirk assassination, which she believes that Tyler Robinson, the furry-loving guy on the roof at Utah Valley University, where there's overwhelming evidence that he is the shooter and that he even confessed to it. But nope, she thinks it was an inside job carried out by Erica Kirk, Charlie's widowed wife, and other people at Turning Point USA so they could take over the organization. I mean, that's insane enough. But now I'll play this clip. Now think about this for a second. Erica Kirk, right? Young woman in her 30s, has to raise 2 kids on her own. I'm not saying money is the issue, but you know what I mean. It's not about money. It's about not having a dad, not having a father figure in their lives. They're only 2 and 3 years old. And here's Owens mocking Erica Kirk because Kirk backed out of an event with J.D. Vance at the University of Georgia in Athens, down in the Peach State. And the reason was because her security couldn't be guaranteed, not so much at the venue where the Secret Service is, but to and from credible threats because of people like Candace Owens, who continually accuse her of killing her own husband. And now it's almost like an Alex Jones situation with the Sandy Hook parents, those poor kids at that elementary school that were executed there. I believe that was back in 2012 or 2011. And then after that, the parents were actually getting death threats because Alex Jones accused them of being actors, and their kids really weren't killed. And it was all, this whole stage thing for gun control or something, which he got sued for rightly, and he lost rightly. Another maniac. But anyway, Owens, here she is in cut number 9, mocking a widow who lost her husband just 7 months ago. And she does this every day. Believe me, I almost hate the fact that I'm playing because I'm giving it oxygen, but this person deserves a major spotlight for all the wrong reasons. Cut number 9, go.
She's a female. She's like, I'm just scared, and like I'm looking online, and people are saying they're just saying that they want me to die, and I'm just so overwhelmed right now, Mr. Vice President. I'm just so overwhelmed. Dab, dab, dab. No tears. I'm so overwhelmed. And he was probably like, oh my God. And my kids, I just don't want my kids to be an orphan, Mr. Vice President. I know. I'm so sorry.
What the hell was that? Yeah, that's what you think went down, huh? Look, she has a podcast. She doesn't work for anybody. She works for herself. I looked at the podcast ratings. She is number 10 in the country. People actually believe this stuff. Listen to it. I mean, that is a cruel, cruel person. Yeah, Erica Kirk is worried that her young kids may be orphaned because there's death threats against her now. And you say, well, those death threats, they can't be real. Ask Charlie Kirk how really are. You can't. It's so wrong. And I have a book coming out called Toxic Americans, 99 People We Could Really, Really, Really Do Without. You'll never guess who gets a real thick chapter in that one. Candace Owens. Meanwhile, you got to hear this. I found this to be genius, quite frankly. Thankfully, there's kind of a Candace Owens imitator that's out there. And here he is with a wig on, I guess. The voice isn't remotely similar, but the rhetoric is. Here is this imitator going off on Candace Owens, and it's quite funny, and it's very, very accurate. Cut number 17, go.
We're so close. We're so close. As many of you know, I've been gathering information from my mommy sleuths, those who live near Erica Kirk and around Erica Kirk, and they have told me some very interesting information, some very interesting things that are just bizarre. Sources have told me that while Charlie was alive, him and Erica Kirk actually lived in the same house. And Erica would monitor his every move. They spent a lot of time together. Sources have told me that they even slept in the same bedroom, okay? Which is bizarre. I don't know why you would do that. I don't know how you could sleep and share a bed with somebody. I don't know how you could do that, and that would certainly affect your sleep. But Charlie was controlled. Charlie was clearly controlled. Apparently, Erica cooked for him. She cooked him meals, which means not only was his schedule controlled, but his diet, the very food that he would eat, was monitored and controlled. Okay?
I'm telling you, you listen to the average episode of Candace Owens, that's it. She always has all these sources that the Israelis actually took out Charlie with the help of Erica. Like, says these things. And again, a lot of people listen to it. And whenever I go off with her on social media on X, I get a good handful of replies. Most of them are in support of what I'm doing, which is calling her out to be the crazy person that she is. But there are some people who just completely and totally believe what she says and then go off on me. So it's interesting that there is, I guess, an audience out there for this stuff, just like there is for Hassan Piker, the anti-Semite who called Jews inbreds and said America deserved 9/11. And a lot of people listen to his podcast. So I guess the bottom line is that there are pockets of people that are insane in this country that will believe whatever they really, really want to believe. I think it's called confirmation bias. Yes, that's what I'm going for. Meanwhile, we got one more, actually. Our friend Rob Schneider used to be on Saturday Night Live. He is a huge Trump supporter to the point where Saturday Night Live does a reunion and doesn't invite Rob. I mean, isn't that ridiculous? How thin-skinned can you be? You're supposed to be comics on a show, and then Lorne Michaels said, we can't have Rob Schneider. He supports Trump. Okay. That's great. That's wonderful. Anyway, here is the aforementioned in cut number 13 talking about the aforementioned Candace Owens. Cut number 13, go.
I just heard that Candace Owens has proof that the Venezuelan boats were blown up by the Zionist state of Israel. And it's true because Candace had a dream about it. All of Candace's dreams come true. Especially the dream she had when she was a little girl about one day becoming the biggest grifter the internet has ever seen. But there is a glimmer of hope. After a conversation that she had with Erica Kirk, Candace Owens has promised to be 3% less completely.
Oh, that's tremendous. And that was actually at a Turning Point USA event. So yeah, definitely a home team there, but that's funny regardless of wherever those jokes were told, Rob Schneider. Anyway, back to our lead story. Obviously, Iran capitulates on everything that Trump and the U.S. wants. No more nukes, no more uranium enrichment, no more nuclear dust. Strait of Hormuz completely and totally open. Pressure from China helped bring this along. And obviously the blockade, which was we look back on great military moves in our military's history. That blockade, not allowing Iran boats in and out, therefore no money going in and out in terms of oil. That's what ended this thing. But let's look back and let's see how Kamala and Biden spoke about Iran compared to Trump. And which one of these three people in this clip you think got the Iranians' attention? This is cut number 18. Go.
What's the message to Iran?
Don't. What is your message to Iran in this moment?
Don't.
I'm going to bomb the out of them. I don't care. I don't care.
Yeah. Do you think that got their attention? When you say, I'm going to blank the blank out of them? Yeah. I'm going to bomb the blank out of them. And he did. And you're not hearing, by the way, and you would, believe me, about mass civilian casualties. We did everything to avoid that as much as possible during this war. And sure enough, their infrastructure is still totally intact in terms of power plants, most bridges. This was as precision as it gets. And again, Pete Hegseth, all right? Friends with the guy, I admit. Right? I worked with him at Fox for years, did many a segment with Pete. We kept hearing how unqualified he is. I mean, in terms of military victories, one after the other, and military recruitment is way up now under Hegseth. All right, just saying. It looks very, very qualified from what I can see. Anyway, Zohran Mamdani, he was on CBS News, and somewhat of a softball interview, but this question, I guess, was decent. There was no pushback, of course. They just basically allowed him to filibuster. But here is Gayle King on the morning show, going one by one through the promises that Mamdani offered up during the campaign, and now 100 and something days in, none of them have come to fruition. Mamdani just lies through his teeth on this, smiling the whole way, of course. But I'll tell you how he's lying after we play this clip in cut number whatever. Go.
People talk about the promises that you made during your campaign. 3 of your signature issues: universal free childcare, freezing city rents, making city buses free. Promises haven't been materialized yet because the rent isn't frozen, the buses aren't free, no universal childcare. And so New Yorkers are saying, it's been 100 days. Why haven't you done it? What do you say to that? Well, because the campaign promises were big for a lot of people.
As they should be, because New Yorkers are facing a big crisis of affordability. So I'll go through one by one. We said that we would deliver universal childcare. On day 8, we announced that agreement with Governor Hochul. For the first time in New York City now, we are delivering universal childcare for 2-year-olds. 2,000 this year, 12,000 next year, every single 2-year-old by the end of year 4. We said we believe that the rent should be frozen for New Yorkers who live in rent-stabilized housing. There are 6 vacancies on the board that determines that. We filled those vacancies. They're going to make their decision. They're an independent board. They'll make that decision this summer. And then we said that we would speed up the slowest buses in America and make them free as well. And we're proud to say that we're already speeding up buses for more than 1 million New Yorkers, putting 6 minutes back in their pockets, which, as you know, in New York City, time is money. And we're working with Albany to make them free. And so what I would say when we look at these 3 main campaign promises is we're seeing the kind of progress we were told was impossible, and we're doing all of it while also accomplishing the same thing that we said we would do before even affordability, which is public safety. And that is a key part of our agenda.
Whoa. Okay, let's go one by one. Okay. He says that there'll be 2,000 2-year-olds that will get free universal child care. There are other ages of children, right? Like, I don't know, baby 1-year-old, 3-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-old. Why only 2-year-olds? And I guess by the end of his first term, that's when this whole thing comes together after he gets a few thousand 2-year-olds under this free health care. All right. So that was a complete dodge and completely incomplete. Then he talks about rent freezes, and Mamdani admits that he doesn't control that. It's up to an independent board. So when the independent board says you freeze rents, that is a very, very bad thing because history shows that it doesn't work. Look, if this did pass, it would ruin rentals as landlords would refuse to rent at a loss, because why would you rent something and then lose money on it? And then inventory would completely collapse. That's how that's going to work. I only took Econ 101 and I understand this. All right. So again, and if it doesn't pass that board, he'll say, well, it's the board's fault. Free buses. All right. He says that he's putting 6 minutes back in terms of people's pockets, in terms of it being faster. There is no stat that proves that anywhere. 0. He made it up. No, by the way, they're not free. They're actually more expensive than when he took office. And Hochul would have to raise taxes to pay for them, the governor. And if she raises taxes to pay for them, I can guarantee you Bruce Blakeman will beat her during that re-election campaign. Raising taxes, bad idea. Socialism never works. It never has, because it removes all incentive to work hard and succeed. Anyway, we're going to wrap this puppy up. Red Hot Chili Peppers bring us home. It's Friday night here in New York and around the country. Back with more in just a moment.
This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition.
Joe Concha.
Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. This is the Joe Concha Show, weekday edition. Sponsored by the Tunnel to Towers Foundation. Here's Joe Concha.
Red Hot Chili Peppers Friday, everybody. All right. It's the Olympic portion of our show. So we're going to give out bronze, silver, and gold as far as three of the stupidest things that I've heard over the last 24 hours. Okay, first up, Representative Yvette Clarke, Democrat, Brooklyn, Congresswoman. Here is why she believes Brooklyn needs more illegals, not less, not making this up. And here's why she thinks that should happen. And boy, just lets the cat totally out of the bag. Cut 16, go.
I'm from Brooklyn, New York. We have a diaspora that can absorb a significant number of these migrants. And when I hear colleagues talk about, the doors of the inn being closed, no room in the inn, I'm saying, I need more people in my district, but just for redistricting purposes. And those members could clearly fit here.
I need more illegals for redistricting purposes? She said that out loud? That's impeachable right there. And by the way, Brooklyn cannot absorb any more illegals. That is insane stuff. This person actually represents a section of Brooklyn in Congress. I mean, that is utterly insane and illegal for that matter, what she wants. Anyway, Hillary Clinton, back doing the whole, we got to monitor social media thing, because it's a great idea to have the government step in and say what is and isn't free speech. This is cut 14, the silver medal winner, the silver medal. Well, let's just do this again, Kevin. It's cut 14, your silver medal winner, Hillary Clinton, go.
Platforms, whether it's Facebook or Twitter X or Instagram or TikTok, whatever they are, if they don't moderate and monitor the content, we lose total control. And it's not just the social and psychological effects, it's real harm.
Yeah, that's a great idea, the government monitoring speech. Hey, who's going to be on that Ministry of Truth, I wonder? Has she ever read George Orwell? This is how it starts. And the Biden administration, the AutoPen, already tried this once. There is no appetite for this, but Hillary wants social media moderation. She could have been president, too. All right, our gold medal winner for stupidest thing I've heard all day and all week and maybe all month. You'll have to tune in 11 a.m. on Sunday to WABC and on stations around the country for my show then. And then otherwise, we're back on Monday at 9 p.m. Eastern Time for Concha at Night. Until then, I got two words for you. Bye-bye.